Yo, apprentices. It's so good to see you. Welcome. Coming into the Dark Temple, visited by Mara Jade, Luke Skywalker, and Kyle Katarn, and so many of the Force sensitives like yourself. I am Lord Dagovere, and it's so good to see you, friends. It's so good to see you, fam. Let's frickin' go. We got it today. I know y'all were talking about the cloak. I know you guys hadn't seen the cloak in so long. Well, this is what we got. Let's go. Soon I will have a young apprentice, one far younger and more powerful. The cloak. It's been so long since the cloak. I know. Mind you, I'm not going to wear it for too long, because I get so damn hot in this thing. But I just wanted to start everybody off. Get everybody so hyped and so excited. Because I get you guys... finally, the cloak. The cloak was only supposed to be a watch-along thing, right? We did it for the Acolyte. I wanted to do it for Skeleton Crew. And I thought it'd be really fun. I thought it'd be really enjoyable. So this is what we're doing now. This is, and you know, it's spooky season, man. It's been spooky season. I love Halloween so much. I get so excited for Halloween, man. And I'm getting ready for my Kylo Ren stuff again. I got my Kylo Ren stuff. Maybe one of these. Let's see what date it is. That's actually Halloween. I think Halloween is going to be like on a Tuesday or something. Oh, it's going to be a Thursday. Yes, good. Yes. Only Thursday. So maybe on the 29th then. Maybe what I'll do is I'll dress up the entire time as Kylo, because that's what I'll have. I've been wanting to get the Mandalorian stuff for so long, man, and hopefully I can get it going. But I've been wanting to do it. But today, guys, today, Apprentices and Acolytes, fam, I've been wanting to talk about balance in the Force, and I thought that was such a really good topic. I had a video about it. I had a poll about it. I had a lot of people talk about their versions of what they believed, what balance in the Force was, and I think it's really interesting to see everybody's view on balance in Star Wars. And I think there's a lot of really interesting things about everybody and how they feel what balance is. Is it 50-50 light side, dark side? Is it more light than darkness? I think a lot of people really kind of look at things, like yin and yang and things like that. And I think it's really interesting to hear everybody's depiction, the way they perceive the Force in Star Wars. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. So it's going to be fun. Thank you so much, everybody, coming on Instagram Live. We're also on YouTube as well. Super fun. Always good to talk to you guys. We're here for about an hour, and yeah, it's going to be freaking good. It's going to be good. Okay. All right. Yes, Kylo Ren. Yes, I've never seen you as Kylo Ren. Yeah, it's funny. On my TikTok, I used to do a bunch, because I do the lightsaber stuff, too. I always spin. Do the Obi-Wan. There's like certain things that everybody tries to do in Star Wars. They always try to replicate the Star Wars, like Anakin Skywalker or Hayden Christensen and Ian McGregor. They all have the fancy schmancy Revenge of the Sith duels, and everybody tries to do that. I try to do it, and so when I did it with Kylo Ren, it was really fun because Kylo Ren's lightsaber is really different. He's got the cross guard. So it's a bit different. It's a bit difficult to do it with his lightsaber, but if you're good enough, you can still manage to do those things. It's really fun. Apparently, Jedi 3 is going to be the end of Cal Kestis' trilogy, but that doesn't mean it could be the end of his story, Leon. And that's what I think is so fun about it. Is like we have a really good story here with Jedi in the series for Jedi Survivor or Jedi Fallen Order, whatever you want to call it. Cal Kestis is one of the best new characters introduced into Star Wars, and I think that's what's so fun. I think his series has to end in terms of gaming because the character is really important. The character is very good. Of course, you want to elevate him, bring him into live action, and I think that's the best part of that is that look at this. A video game got so much attention in Star Wars, and now Cal Kestis probably has the potential of becoming a really important character down the road. Are you going to see him in future iterations of Ahsoka or The Mandalorian? There's a lot of projects that can probably, have this character, and I think that's probably the strength of the Mando universe is that when you start watching a lot of these projects and when these projects start to unfold, maybe they're going to have books in the expanded universe to help amplify or enhance the entire, just watching of all of these programs. It's going to be really cool to see a character like Cal Kestis help enhance that entire experience and that entire story. That's what's going to be so great about it. That's going to be awesome. I hope he gets live action and joins the fight against Thrawn. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Because I feel like Cal Kestis is, this timeline's Kyle Katarn. Obviously he's, I don't necessarily like to compare because I can't, everybody's unique. Everybody fills the gap in their own way. But Cal Kestis specifically is so important to this universe, to this timeline, this new Disney canon, where he's really enjoyable. His stories are really fun. The games are great. I think they're a little underappreciated at times. In an era where everything is criticized, in an era where everything is said to be bad and shite, or whatever people call it, slop, right? Whatever, that character and his stories are very, very well done. They're exceptional. And I think that's something that you want to do. You want to take that character, bring it to the next level. What's the next level? Live action. I would love to see Cal Kestis in live action. I've been wanting to see him since Mandalorian Season 2. Mandalorian Season 2 kind of gave me the idea that it's possible to bring a lot of these expanded universe characters into live action, that it can happen. Mandalorian Season 2 is, in my opinion, is like, people don't understand how good Mandalorian season 2 is, and a lot of people talk about it now that it's not as good because Luke Skywalker and all these things. Nah, man, F that. When we were watching it, everybody loved it. Everybody talked about it. It really literally broke the internet. And if you can have that experience with a character like Cal Kestis, bring him in. Cobb Vanth is a character that was brought into a story from like 2 or 3 pages from the Aftermath trilogy, and they edited his character to a certain degree to bring him into live action, to fit him into that story. It was perfect, man. That's the blueprint. That's the example that you use. What the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian did was perfection, and just try to replicate that. That's obviously a lot harder said than done, but like, the solution is there. The equation for success is there, and that's the beauty of it. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining on Instagram Live. Just talking about Star Wars. Yo, Padawans, fam, it's so good to see you. Thank you so much, fam. Appreciate you all. Yo, can I get a ready up inside the chat for all the apprentices and acolytes coming in here? Let's go. Love talking to you guys. Yeah, Mando Season 2 is easily the best thing Disney has ever done for Star Wars. I want to say yes. I want to say yes. I love Rogue One. I love Andor. My favorite is Ahsoka, but I don't think like Ahsoka is as good. It's my favorite. I really love it. But I understand and I see its flaws, but it's still my favorite thing because of Anakin Skywalker, because of Ahsoka. I'm trying to think what else that I really liked. I love The Mandalorian, man. I just love The Mandalorian so much. I think The Mandalorian is just so damn good. And even Season 3, where everybody's like, nah, it's trash, it's not good. I was like, yeah, I mean, it's not as good as the other seasons, but I still enjoy it. I don't enjoy it as much as the first 2, obviously, but it's still pretty damn good. So I want everyone inside these chats on Instagram and YouTube to tell me what you believe. What does balance in the Force mean? Like, does that mean light side and dark side 50-50, a complete equal cut, one for the other? Or what do you believe that actually means? Because for me, as I'm sweating here in this freaking cloak that I'm about to take off in like 2 minutes, for me, and what I've read in the expanded universe, okay, what I've read through all of my nice, beautiful source books and essential guides, and the Book of the Sith and Darth Plagueis and, everything else, every story in Star Wars has one thing. A character, a Force user, turns to the dark side and manipulates the Force for their own benefit, for their own power, at the sacrifice of everybody else around them. That, to me, is not yin and yang. That is not yin and yang to me. And I think that's where so many people see that dark and light. Oh, this is complete nirvana, right? A conduit of both together. And I don't think that's really how the Force works. Because the Jedi have existed for so long. Even before the Jedi have existed in 25,000 years, before the Battle of Yavin. You understand that the Force has existed. If we really want to go back to Legends continuity, where 100,000 years and, the Korriban and the Sith people are found and the Civil War is happening with the Rakatan Empire and they're invading, Korriban with King Adass, you understand that the dark side exists. You understand that the light side exists. But the galaxy is thrown into calamity in all of Star Wars stories when a dark side user, it doesn't matter if it's Sith, as long as it's just the person is a dark side user, and that person manipulates the Force for themselves, in that moment, that sets off the change. That tips the scales. The galaxy is no longer in balance. That's why I feel like yin and yang, the whole yin and yang thing that people talk about, I don't think is true. I don't think it's possible for 50% dark side, 50% light side to coexist with one another. I think it's actually more so light side dominant than it is dark side. And I know that's really confusing and that doesn't make sense to a lot of people because that's not equal. But the thing is the dark side itself existing isn't the problem. The dark side itself being darkness isn't the problem. The problem is when Force users start to use that power for their own benefit, and that is what tips the scales off balance. Every story in Star Wars is like that, which is why I believe that the Jedi, in my opinion, are way more important than something like the Sith. Because the Sith and dark-sided Force users that fall to the dark side, they consume it. And George Lucas always talked about how the dark side is supposed to be selfishness, right? The representation of selfishness, greed, deceit. He also called it quick pleasures and things like that. Where the light side is supposed to be joy, happiness, selflessness. And that's supposed to be the more difficult to achieve. And that's why I truly believe the Jedi themselves, they don't manipulate the Force in their own gain like a Sith would. And that's why I really believe that the light side, it's not even really the light side, it's just the Force, but it is the light side to George. And it really seems like it's more like a 70-30 or an 80-20 that really is balance. Because the moment someone like Darth Sidious comes into power, the prequel trilogy starts, and you already see from the opening lines of that movie with Obi-Wan Kenobi saying, "I sense something elusive elsewhere," the scales have already tipped. Which is why I've always believed that the whole 50-50 gray Jedi thing just is not true. It's not an accurate representation of the Force. But, I feel like a lot of people, are going to disagree, especially with the whole the idea of the Great Jedi and things like that. And it's open to your own interpretation. But at least for me, that's just what I believe, honestly. That's how I feel. All right, so, Aki says, hey, from Japan, I've been feeling lately that the balance is a myth and doesn't actually exist. Aki, I think that is a fantastic opinion. Because that's the other part of this question, too, that I'm going to get to it later, is like, the prophecy and bringing balance to the Force. I don't think it's permanent. And in fact, I don't think bringing balance to the Force is permanent at all. That's the whole point of Star Wars. It's not a Star War, it's plural. It's Star Wars, worlds. But in Knights of the Old Republic 2, I think Traya has the greatest lines about the Force itself and how the Force kind of is like making everybody choose what's actually happening. That no one really has free will. But that's just a part of her rambles. It's not really a true representation of what the Force is. And, if you play the game, you understand that her ramblings are also misguided as well because she eventually falls to the dark side. But Aki, I think that's a pretty freaking amazing view right there about it doesn't actually exist. Texas Yankee says, does the Force allow itself to be manipulated? It feels like it does manipulating to achieve balance. Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about. Beautiful, beautiful. Right on target. I love that. Yes, that's exactly how I feel, honestly. I do believe that maybe down the line we'll get something like that again, but I think that's why Knights of the Old Republic storylines is so profound in a dynamic way, like in a positive way, which is why we haven't got a story like that in a very long time. It's because it just defines so much about Star Wars, about the Force, about really the glue that holds the entire universe of Star Wars together. And I think a lot of times, too, Star Wars is at a disadvantage because you continuously have to make definitions or make people understand the entire in-depth whatever about Star Wars. Who, what, when, where, why. And I think Star Wars is ultimately at its biggest strength when it doesn't have to define things. And so probably that's why we don't really get to see a Knights of the Old Republic 3 anytime soon, or anything like that. I'm not sure if my Instagram Live is doing well, but I don't see too many people going off, so maybe it's just my phone, but I hope you guys are doing okay. If you guys can't communicate, please go ahead and talk on YouTube, please. Leon says, I think the reason there's just that Star Wars keeps happening is because despite Anakin coming back in the light, getting rid of the Sith, trouble comes around. Yes, exactly. And that's the one thing, too, is I take off my cloak, guys, because it's so damn hot. Yeah, thank you, sir. I'm sorry. It's so damn hot, fam. I apologize. I'm already sweating, dude. I was only in it for like 20 minutes. The thing is, that's exactly right, Leon. Is the prophecy never talks about the Anakin, like the prophecy of the Chosen One never talks about permanent balance. It never talks about the dark side is destroyed. You know, it never talks about how Anakin Skywalker needs to fall to the dark side. It only talks about bringing back balance, you know, and destroying the Sith. And that, I think, is the beauty of that entire prequel trilogy, is the debate of whether or not, like, the confines, like the actual, what it is the prophecy of the Chosen One does. And I think in Revenge of the Sith, you know, you get the dialogue between Mace Windu, Yoda, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and they talk about, well, you know, maybe we misread this prophecy. Maybe we actually don't know what it means. Maybe he's not the Chosen One at all. Maybe we just picked him to believe he was the Chosen One because we want this to happen. And I think that's also really good, too, because you kind of see, I guess that's like what the strength of Dune, that series, where kind of like how influence and religion can become weaponized. You know, and the Jedi kind of get played for fools, especially when it comes to Anakin Skywalker and what he does. Because no one really understands what exactly he's going to do. Yeah, sure, he's going to destroy the Sith, but he's also going to destroy the Jedi in the process. He's also going to turn to the dark side. You know, and just like Mace Windu referred to him in the Star Wars Revenge of the Sith novelization that I have here on my desk, you know, this is an amazing book. If you haven't read this book, man, this book is damn good. It's one of the best books in all of Star Wars. And Mace Windu has this ability to see the Shatterpoint. Shatterpoint is basically like the weakness in all things. And then when he looks at Anakin after Palpatine reveals to him that he's the Sith Lord, Anakin no longer has Shatterpoints. Mace Windu refers to him as the Shatterpoint, like the weakness in the entire galaxy. Because he understands at that moment, Mace Windu understands at that moment that Anakin Skywalker can destroy the galaxy, depending on what happens in these next moments. And of course, what happens in these next moments is Mace Windu goes to arrest Palpatine. You know, and that's the severity of it. That's the danger of it. In that prophecy, I think Mace Windu in that moment understands completely what the prophecy was. That this guy could... He literally described him as a bomb that could destroy the universe. He had to talk to him in such a delicate way that he thought he was going to explode. And I think that honestly really says a lot about like Anakin and how you're supposed to treat him. But also, I think that represents exactly what we're talking about with balance and the Sith coming around and trouble coming around. And what exactly, like how the Force is manipulating, not just Force users, but also everybody. You know, all the representatives, all of the inhabitants of the galaxy. It's really interesting. And that's why I love the prequel trilogy so much, because you can just overanalyze that over and over and over. And I think the expanded universe benefits the prequel trilogy the most. Really does. David Torres says, I believe that balance is because, like Lord Dagovere, what about the Bendu? The Bendu is really interesting to me because there's a lot of people online that would have you believe that the Bendu itself is the perfect ideology of the Force. And I think that they are misled. I think that they're misled specifically because at the end of that arc, the Bendu falls to the dark side. And he gets angry. He gets upset. He gets frustrated. And then you see him use his Force Storm against Thrawn and the Imperials. And then, of course, I don't want to say that he dies, but he definitely, you know, goes on to the next plane of living, the next realm of the Force. And I think that's what's also really interesting, too, because the Bendu himself talks about how ancient he is, and he was there from the beginning, yada yada. He's really old, and he's been sleeping and slumbering and all these things. So you play into the idea that this thing, the Bendu, is quite ancient, maybe even older than the Mortis overlords that we see, and that's really interesting too. But the Bendu is naive, in my opinion. I think he's very arrogant too, because he thinks he knows everything. And I don't really think that is a great representation of his view of the Force. I think he's someone that is very unique and interesting, but I think the Bendu is also flawed. And I think a lot of people that go back and really dissect what actually happens when he's looking at the holocron and he's talking to Kanan Jarrus and he confronts them with Darth Maul, and then of course what happens at the end there when he falls to the dark side and uses what I think is Force Storm, or a version of Force Storm, against Thrawn. I think that he was consumed by the dark side in anger, because he got upset and annoyed with everybody. Annoyance, anger, rage, those are traits of the dark side. And the dark side is a drug. The more you consume it, the more it eats you apart. Perhaps the Bendu he wasn't consumed like, say, Anakin, but he absolutely, in my opinion, tapped into the dark side in that moment. Texas Yankee says, "To the Force awareness or sentience, how could it influence without? This hurts my brain." Yeah, so Texas Yankee, that's a very good question, because that's all that's all stuff that I think when you play into it, there's a whole bunch of concepts out there about the midi-chlorians, right? And then the Force itself, and the Force is supposed to be this consciousness that's connected to everybody. It's literally the way of life, right? The circle of life. It's binding the galaxy together. Is it aware? I mean, I would think so. I think it may not be aware on the level of like someone with a brain, but perhaps it's just, I don't really want to say an organism, because I think that's what people get really upset about with midi-chlorians. But let's say you get angry and you want to use the dark side. The dark side of the Force is tempting you. It's talking to you. It's convincing you that this is the way, right? So it has to be aware. It has to understand. But is the light side trying to help you with serenity and peace and joy and happiness? Maybe, perhaps. But I think that's more of like a calling or a feeling, rather than something like the dark side, where the dark side is so weaponized. That's the best way that I can understand it to myself. I think a really good version of this is actually in the High Republic, which a lot of people criticize, where one of the characters meditates and she's able to listen to the sound of the Force. And depending on what she's meditating on, it has different vibrations and different noises and different callings. And I think that's the way that it speaks to that character, and is probably aware in its own way. But I think probably would have awareness and sentience to a certain degree. How much, I'm not sure we'll ever know. Coach George Lucas isn't making Star Wars anymore. David Torres says, "Who do you think would have won one-on-one, Anakin or Mace Windu?" So, the guy that wrote Revenge of the Sith novelization, Matthew Stover, he had an interview a couple of years ago, and he believed that Anakin was a beast. Like, he believed that George Lucas thought Anakin was the chosen one. Anakin could do this, and he thought that same question was asked him, and he picked Anakin. So if this guy is writing this novel, if this guy has literally talked to George Lucas about this, then I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna say the same answer. I'm gonna pick Anakin. But I think Nick Gillard, the person that trained Hayden Christensen and everybody in the prequel trilogy, he also has a huge IQ for these characters and how they fight. And I think it'd be really interesting to see what he said. If he picks Mace Windu, I'm picking Mace Windu. If he picks Anakin, well, then that's more sentiment about the potential of Anakin Skywalker and how good he was. But me, as an Anakin Skywalker fanboy, who's a diehard Anakin Skywalker fan, I have to pick Mace Windu. Just because, like, the prequels are all about Anakin Skywalker's failure, man. And I understand that Anakin Skywalker on paper is the most amazing thing in Star Wars. But, man, he just has a lot of asterisks by his wins, and he has a lot of failures, and I just can't pick him in good faith as much as I love that character, man. It's frustrating as hell, but I think it's true. Yeah, that's how I feel. I just think that Mace Windu is just a beast, bro. I don't think people really understand how good Mace Windu is. You know, like I'm gonna say this, and people are probably gonna freaking hate me, but like, you know, if Nihilus thinks that he's going to dog water everybody in the prequel trilogy, Mace Windu is gonna stomp a mud hole in him. Mace Windu is going to beat the living shit out of Nihilus, and I don't even think it's gonna be close, like at all. Because I actually believe that Nihilus is a very poor Force sensitive. I don't think, like, he essentially got his power out of an accident. When you really think about it, Knights of the Old Republic. And, you know, he's a Force wound. And his power is so massive. It's so incredible. But it's also his greatest weakness because he can't control it. And what I think is a lot of people don't understand, too, is when you play Knights of the Old Republic, he tries to kill the main villain in that game, and he can't. So it says a lot about like his expertise in using his own power. Not only did he fail to kill that person, he also failed to strip them of the Force. And then, of course, the second time he encounters the person who is supposedly the best of the best defense against him, he dies. He collapses on his own self. And that just says to me that Nihilus is a really powerful glass cannon. Powerful, yes, absolutely. But even Traya, the main villain in that entire game, tells you that this guy is powerful, but he's just as weak as he is powerful because he's already dying. So, you know, I think a lot of people really overshadow those details because Nihilus is a really cool character. He's badass. But I don't think that they're really honest about themselves about how weak he can become, and I think a character like Mace Windu would decimate him. Absolutely. That's just how I feel. I think it depends on Anakin. Yeah, you guys are in the Mace Windu stuff. Aki says, is it strange to think that the clear division into light and dark was established by early Force users, and that while the Force may have dual aspects, there isn't a clear separation into sides? You know, I think that's really interesting because I do like the idea that there is just the Force. And I also like the idea that the dark side is a part of that natural idea of the Force, because you have to think of things like death, right? So you think about animals, you think about people killing one another, right? There's obviously one of those things is out of malice. The other of those things is out of necessity, out of consumption, out of, you know, getting fuel to live and sustenance. You know, so predators and animals, you know, hunting. I think that is a natural darkness, you know. But of course, Rogue One actually does this really well, where Cassian goes to assassinate Jyn Erso's father, Galen Erso. And the character, God damn, his name is escaping me right now. But the one with the Force is with you. The monk Wills. What's his name? I can't remember. But he says, you know, the Force moves quickly next to a predator that's going to kill. And that basically just kind of tells you about how the dark side of the Force kind of works around, how it's also rushing. So it's clear that in Star Wars, there is definitely a separation between light side and darkness, especially in The Empire Strikes Back, where you have the Dagobah cave. And the cave itself is of darkness. You know, there's a lot of dark things in that cave that Luke Skywalker experiences, that Yoda has experienced, and that is understand from his teachings when he was becoming a Jedi Master. And, you know, one of the best quotes in all of Star Wars is, you know, once you go down the dark path, forever it'll dominate your destiny. So it's very clear that there is a clear division into light and dark side of the Force. Now, I think what's also interesting too, of course, which is one of my least favorite movies, is The Last Jedi, but the idea of the Prime Jedi and the statue that it has with the light and the darkness on ahch-to, that is very intriguing, especially with the novel Dawn of the Jedi and the comics, you know, Dawn of the Jedi as well, with the Yothor and, you know, the light and dark, and, you know, the Ashla and Bogan and things like that, dark and light side moons, and Tython. There's a lot of ideas there that were established. You know, is that something that George Lucas was there and talking about and giving them ideas? I don't think so. But I think it's interesting to see, or at least give food for thought for the idea of what really established the Force itself. Because even with, that we understand from a lot of these, Legends continuity things, I think the thing that we understand the most was probably 100,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. And that was, of course, the Rakan Empire. And with the Rakan Empire, we understand, too, that the Infinite Empire had invaded Korriban. But that's, like, one of the first dates of, like, the established galaxy. It doesn't really establish when exactly the Force in the Wellsprings happened in Star Wars. And that's just for this specific galaxy. It's not just for other galaxies in the universe of Star Wars. So I think there's a lot of things that you could think about, especially with Mortis. Mortis is so interesting, and what happened with the father and the son and the daughter, and when were they first established. And I was just listening to a podcast today that had Dave Filoni back on in like 2016 or something, and he was talking about the Mortis arc and how a lot of people think that the son and the daughter are representations of the light side, and they're not. He's actually talking about how they're literally just beings. That they're just beings. And that's it. They're not representations. They take the idea of the light and the dark, but they're not the representations of the light and dark side. Which I think was really interesting, because I thought completely opposite. I swear to God, like the daughter was of the light and the son was of the dark. But apparently that's not true. So I guess they have some other ideas about that. And I guess we'll never find out what that actually is. But it's all really interesting. And it's all on YouTube. All these interviews and stuff is all there. It's just people don't do their research. They don't go out and look at these things. They watch a YouTube video and they take it for the word of mouth. Which is why I'm so bent on listing sources and where this came from. And in a lot of my videos, I literally list like the chapter and the page when it came out. And I think it's really important for people to understand those things. Leon says, did you guys see the plot of the scrapped Obi-Wan movie trilogy? There was a movie trilogy. I've only heard the rumors of the movie. I didn't know that there was going to be a trilogy. Damn, that's crazy. Man, that's insane. Anakin or Darth Vader? I'm going with Anakin. Darth Vader and Anakin, I'm absolutely picking Vader. Vader, I think, would absolutely destroy Anakin. And the thing is like, you have to understand two things. Is like, with Anakin's potential is like Superman, Yo, Ralph, it's so good to see you, fam. Thank you for coming over here, fam. Hope you've been doing good. Oh, yeah, the writer just revealed the details on it. Really? Interesting. I'm going to have to see that. Man, that's crazy. Because that creative process is really interesting. It takes, like, production takes a long time. And I'm really interested to see, like, when exactly this was part of the production timeline. Because there's probably so many different scripts and log lines and pitches that they got, and I wonder, like, if this was the main version, was this going to be a thing, or was just this writer said that, he's saying that it was a part of it, or maybe it was only really going to be an idea for like 2 months, and then they changed it on him, and that's what I think a lot of people don't understand too, is that they take word of mouth of all these people coming out of with these scripts, but they don't realize, like, that was probably an idea for like a couple weeks, and then it changed. So we'll see. Surviving, dude, I feel you, man. I feel you, fam. Hope you've been well. Hope you were nowhere near the the hurricane and stuff. But it's Halloween. We're getting Halloween soon. Ralph, we are talking about balance in the Force and everything, and what your idea of balance is. Do you think it's 50-50 light and dark side, or do you think it's more so light side than dark side? Texas Yankee says, where did the father, son, and daughter story start? I like to read their history. So there's a couple books, actually, that do delve into it, and I think it's the New Jedi Order stuff, and you get to find out another piece to that entire family, and I don't want to give away spoilers if you haven't read it, but it's really cool, really interesting, and I love hearing it. They don't really go into the context of the origins of the father, son, and daughter, because George Lucas specifically was in on that entire... Mind you, this is Clone Wars, so he was always doing these things. Like, this is all Star Wars stories coming from George Lucas. So I don't think we really hear about the origins of the daughter, son, and the father. But you get to see more of the world. You get to see an understanding of what it was about and who else was there and what else is involved with them. But I think Ahsoka is really going to reveal more of that, and maybe what we're going to see is Heir to the Empire as well. The Grey have it figured out. Oh no, you believe in the Grey Jedi, fam? Are you one of those? How do you think that they will do the voice of Vader moving forward? I'm not sure. You know, I think that I don't mind what they do right now with Luke Skywalker. I think it's fine. But, you know, a lot of people don't like AI. And I think that their feelings on AI are justified, man. AI is really terrifying when you look at what it does and what it can do and the amount of jobs that it can steal. If you can give me a voice actor, which what we do, and we see a lot of that for voice acting in Star Wars video games. If you can give me someone that is like, bro, this is like the next James Earl Jones voice, and it's like right there, give that person an opportunity, please. You know, there's so many Hollywood impersonators out there, like that one guy that looks like Heath Ledger and is always in the Joker costume, sounds exactly like him. Dude, give someone like that an opportunity, and I will be fine. You know, I don't know how this person is going to feel for being Darth Vader's voice the entire time, but you know, I think that would be awesome. You know, I would rather have his, you know, his likeness lived on and represented in that way than something else. He explained that it was Obi-Wan feeling that... oh, here we go. So I heard the rumor that the Obi-Wan show a while ago, but I didn't think that much of it about why. He explained that the Obi-Wan fearing his outcome with Luke would be the same outcome with Anakin. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I think that makes a lot of sense, especially where Obi-Wan's mind state is, which I think Kenobi does really good. I don't really like Kenobi in terms of the project. In fact, I think... you know, I think it was one of the weakest Star Wars projects that I've seen, but I really liked the idea of the PTSD and where he was mentally, and I really appreciated the amount of guilt that we saw, because I think that PTSD and trauma and just how they hold themselves up, I think Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda really have a lot of story for that. You know, it sucks that I got to see it with Luke. I didn't want to see it with Luke in The Last Jedi, but I really appreciate it more when it comes from Yoda and it comes from Obi-Wan Kenobi. So there's no light side or dark side. There is only the Force. Interesting. I see what you're getting at. I don't know if you've seen my videos on the Grey Jedi and where the Grey Jedi first appeared in canon and the idea of the Grey Jedi. But there's some really interesting ideas about the Grey Jedi specifically that were brought into the previous canon and then were eventually retconned in Legends and then also were acknowledged and then said, like, yeah, this isn't really the true idea of what the Force is, and a lot of Jedi don't like or... don't like that path of the Grey Jedi, of what people think it is. It's really interesting. You know, actually, I think there's actually one of these books I have here on hand, too, that talk about it, if I remember correctly. Now, I think I even have the page stamped, because I'm so funny with these. Jedi Paths and Subclasses. Yeah, so let's see if I have this completely. So this is also one of the current canon books. Well, this was actually previously established in Legends continuity, and then they brought it back because they liked it so much. Now, there is one... Oh, man, I know it's on one of these pages, but maybe I'll have to find it later. But I love debating. I love talking about the Grey Jedi. And how there's so many different depictions of it, because when it's first mentioned, believe it or not, in Legends continuity, it's Plo Koon's master, the Wookiee, and the Wookiee talks about how, literally says that Qui-Gon Jinn is a Grey Jedi, but not in the idea that you would think. It's because Qui-Gon is the known outlier. He's so openly against what the Council does, and often defies them, and that's why he's considered a Grey Jedi. He's not using the dark side of the Force. He just doesn't have the same ideals as them. He seems more of someone that is following the Force itself than, you know, dipping down into, you know, the what people usually think is the dark side of the Force, creating something else. And I cannot find this goddamn page, man. I thought I had picked it up, but I guess I'll just have to check it out later. Man, I was really excited to show you guys about the Jedi stuff. Man, I thought it was in here. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Quote is sworn, but anyway. The other thing, too, is, like, from the Knights of the Old Republic campaign guide, believe it or not, it talks about how... the Grey Jedi is listed in the campaign guide. And it talks about how these specific Grey Jedi are actually, like, outliers of the Jedi Council, and that they still adhere and see the Jedi as leaders, but the Jedi Council and the Jedi Order do not like and forbid people going down this way of the Grey Jedi, because the moral standpoint from the Grey Jedi is that they see that if their fate has to be tempted by the dark side of the Force, they will use the dark side of the Force in hopes to do good for the galaxy. This is a definition, like word for word, of what the Grey Jedi is in that campaign guide. And it's really interesting that it's in Knights of the Old Republic, because so many people that play Knights of the Old Republic, see that Knights of the Old Republic is like the perfect representation of the Force. And I don't really think that's true, because the dark side of the Force is supposed to be a drug, and the more you use it, the more you're consumed by it. That's the whole entire point of the dark side. And I think when people consistently talk about how the Grey Jedi is, you can use the dark and you can use the light, I think that they really insult Anakin Skywalker's fall to the dark side, the tragedy that if the Chosen One himself, who is born of the Force, is not able to combat or have immunity toward the dark side, why should anybody else? This is literally the child of the Force. And because you play this video game, you think of this idea where ultimately, in my opinion, when you watch Revenge of the Sith, you see the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker. The tragedy of Anakin Skywalker is amplified so much that Anakin Skywalker's potential is ultimately destroyed. The galaxy is thrown into calamity because this guy makes all the wrong choices and is consumed by the drug of the galaxy, which is the dark side of the Force. That's why I just can't really... I don't have enough faith in myself to support an idea of the Grey Jedi, especially as Anakin Skywalker is one of my favorite characters. So it sucks. I feel like that you could take his sins and what he's done, and just say like, yeah, this guy can do it. This guy can do it. It's totally a possible thing. I just don't. I don't understand. And I don't think anyone's really going to come to convince other people, because there's so many people that are so profoundly supportive. They just they're so supportive of the Grey Jedi stuff, and it is what it is. It's more so the addiction to passion and the power than the dark side itself. But the dark side itself is addiction. The dark side itself is selfishness. That's what George Lucas always preaches. It's supposed to be rage. It's supposed to be hate. It's supposed to be deception. It's supposed to be fear. There was nothing good about those things, at least in this Star Wars world. And I think when a lot of people talk about the dark side itself, they talk about real life things. They talk about nirvana. They talk about yin and yang. But Star Wars is not yin and yang. Star Wars is not nirvana. This is the Force. Everyone that you see uses the dark side of the Force. In the movies, that anything that George has done is represented as evil. Palpatine literally comes into power and sends the galaxy in calamity because he's using the dark side of the Force for his own benefits. And he convinces and grooms Anakin Skywalker, the child of the Force, to do these things as well. And look what happens to him. That is not something, in my opinion, that is about, an addiction to passion. That is literally manipulation. That is the equivalent of the representation of the devil in Star Wars talking to the Chosen One and bringing him down to his level. And that's why I truly believe the dark side. There can't be a Grey Jedi, Do you think Mace dabbled in it? Oh, I made a video on this too. So, and I have this also timestamped. I also found the Grey Jedi stuff, but I'll get you in a second. So, the pad. Everybody talks about the pad, right? So, hey, Bugsy, how you doing, fam? It's good to see you. Thank you so much for coming in, fam. Everybody talks about the pad, and the pad is really interesting. All right, I'm getting super freaking nerdy right now because Mace is giving himself to the fight, the thrill of the fight. Mace Windu is giving himself to the thrill of the fight. And a Jedi isn't really someone that's supposed to thrive in that chaos with, right? But the thing about Vapad is that Mace Windu is the only person that can do this. Because what's happening is Mace Windu is centering himself with his inner darkness, okay? Listen to that. His inner darkness, okay? It's not the dark side, okay? It's not anger. It's not rage. It is his own inner darkness. This is disconnected from the dark side of the Force. And this technique, the more as he focuses on it, what it does is it takes him to the penumbra of the dark side. Now, the penumbra was something I had to look up way before this to understand this. What this means is like Mace Windu dips so deep into this technique that it literally brings him to the edge of the light side, and he's looking at the door of the dark side. He is not touching or going through the dark side and dipping deeper into it. He's bringing himself all the way to the edge of this door, and he stays there. He does not consume the dark side. The dark side is able to pass through him and around him, but he does not tap into it, and he does not use it because he's so manifested into his own personal self with the thrill of the fight. And a lot of people consistently think that this guy is tapping into the dark side when the definition of what Vapad is completely opposite. It literally tells you that he brings you to the end. He's at the edge of the light side, but it is still the light side. It is not the dark side. And that's why people consistently misinterpret what Vapad is or what Mace Windu is. He's not a great Jedi. He is a Jedi that is like no one else, and that is why he is the only one that, in my opinion, that was the only person that could have defeated Palpatine, but also is the only person that can use Vapad. It's too dangerous for everybody else. Everybody else that teaches that or uses that goes down to the dark side. Always. Texas Yankee says, is it impossible that only the light side of the Force is balanced? I don't remember anyone from the dark side talking about balance. It's more consumption. Yes, and that's the idea, Texas Yankee, especially the Sith. The Sith ideology is just all about slavery. It's all about transitioning yourself or devoting yourself to the transformation and the transformation of becoming stronger, becoming better, consuming stuff, using everybody around you to be the best version of yourself, more power. You know, that's what the Sith ideology is. Now, your fuel, of course, is the dark side of the Force. That's why the dark side of the Force is so dangerous. That's why the Sith are dangerous. The Jedi are not going out and killing anybody that they deem as, different. They're not going out and creating slaves. They have some really interesting practices about, how they recruit, but that's a topic for another day. But, they're not evil. They are flawed, but they are not evil. The Sith are evil. The Sith control. The Sith consume. The Sith are cancer. They are bad. And the dark side is not bad. However, the manipulation and the use of the dark side is a weapon. And that's why it's forbidden. The light side, as you said, of the Force is balance. Yes, but even too much light is a bad thing. You can't have 100% light. That's why natural darkness is supposed to be there. Like, animals eating things and hunting and stuff like that. Death, even sickness and stuff like that, there are things, in my opinion, that Star Wars doesn't really define really well, but I really believe that the light side of the Force, or balance at least, is like 70% light side and like 30% dark side. Because the dark side itself is a cancer. Like, it'll consume everything. And that's why it's really crazy when you see Revenge of the Sith. In that moment, Anakin Skywalker turns to the dark side, betrays Mace Windu. The galaxy was already in darkness. But what Anakin did in that moment completely enveloped the galaxy into a shadow. That's why the Empire is called, or the time of the prequel trilogy, the original trilogy is called the Dark Times. That's why Obi-Wan Kenobi says that. It's all dark side. The light is gone. That's why Luke is so important in the original trilogy, because he is now the conduit of the Force. He is the new hope. Anakin Skywalker is still the chosen one, but he's Darth Vader. He's consumed by darkness. That's why that part of Return of the Jedi is so important, because Luke brings back the light into Anakin. Anakin, in that moment again, is the chosen one. And then he destroys the Sith and brings balance to the Force. That's why that trilogy is so important. And that's why the prequel trilogy is so important, because it feeds off each other. Yeah, misunderstood. Yeah. So, yeah, and Ralph, mind you, man, you can believe whatever you want, bro. Trust me, Mel. You believe whatever. I'm not one of these, like, YouTube people that are so like, you're wrong. Nah, bro. Like, you believe what you want, man. I got my books and stuff. I have my own interpretation. I'm just telling you what I think, man. It's okay. If you like the Great Jedi and you think Mace Windu uses dark side, I disagree, but you're open to your own interpretation, fam. It's no big deal. Would you rather be a Jedi or Sith? If I'm being honest, I am more of a Sith than I'm a Jedi, sadly. You know, I would love to be a Jedi, but the person that I am and the things that I've been through, you know, I get emotional, I get upset. You know, I've always wanted to take vengeance or get mad, you know, or things like that. I'm more of a I'm more of a Jedi today than I am a Sith by far, but majority of my life I was a Sith, and I think that's why the Sith are so intriguing, or at least characters like Kylo Ren and Anakin, the potential of Anakin, you know, especially when you watch Ahsoka, which is why I love Ahsoka, which is why Ahsoka is like my favorite thing. Mind you, when I say my favorite, I don't think that it's like it's perfect. No, it's just my favorite. But when I see Anakin Skywalker in World Between Worlds, I love it. It's like a second chance, you know? Same thing with Kylo Ren. Like, I love Kylo Ren, man. I love the redemption arcs in Star Wars because I believe I believe everybody has the opportunity to be good. And I believe that it's never too late, you know? And I think that's the strongest component for me in Star Wars is that hope and redemption and atonement. No matter... You know, Darth Vader is Darth Vader. But a lot of people believe that he atoned himself, you know, for destroying the Sith and bringing balance. And, you know, there's even in-universe stuff that I read all the time about how a lot of people believe that in that moment in itself, that atoned for everything that he did, you know? But of course, it's a matter of perception and what people believe. Do I think that completely redeemed him? No, absolutely not. But I just love the idea of people making a comeback story and working harder to be better, like Kratos. You know, Kratos is an awesome character too. Kratos is definitely a Jedi now, more than Sith, and I think that's really cool. I love that shit, man. But he didn't. Sith. Yeah. Is it possible that the light side of the Force? Oh yeah, I read that already. My bad. Leon, his Sith name is Lord Dagovere. Yes, Lord Dagovere. That's why we see here with the Lord. I love it, dude. I might even change my profile picture and actually put it onto the character that I created. But I'm not sure if you guys are going to be okay with that. I want to make sure that when I do that, you guys understand that it's still the same profile. It's still me. Yankee says, so if you lose a bet with us, we'll make you dress as a Grey Jedi. Sounds like it would be the worst for you. No, I love Revan. You know, I mean, he's the idea of the Grey Jedi, you know? You know, I like... Listen, when a Grey Jedi, in my opinion, is possible, but not in the way that you think. I think the best idea of what a Grey Jedi is what Qui-Gon is. You know, if the Force tells you you have to do something, then you must do this. You know, there's that meme out there where Obi-Wan is like, but Master, the council said this. And then he looks at Obi-Wan and he's like, Obi-Wan, fuck the council. You know, so I think that it's like the greatest idea of what the Grey Jedi should be. And that's honestly though the use of it in its first canon appearance in the 1998 comics, where he is literally named a Grey Jedi because he's so outspoken and openly, you know, it just openly does things differently than the council. And I think that is the best representation of it. Even something that what Revan does. Revan is very similar. And not when he turns to the dark side, of course. You know, when he turns to the dark side, it's definitely a choice. And I don't think in the Star Wars, I don't like that when people they don't understand the depths of which that they use the dark side. The dark side is a choice, and it's a selfish choice, and that's the whole point of why it's evil. Because the selfishness consumes you, and the dark side is a drug. So that's why you can't consistently tap into selfishness and jealousy like you can in Star Wars, and like you can in real life, because there is a force behind it that is a drug, and that it's going to eat you away and keep convincing you that it's okay to do this. Just like the way in the book that it tells Anakin Skywalker it's okay to kill children. You know, that's the idea behind the dark side of the Force. It is a drug. It is deceiving you. But I like the idea of Revan because he goes out because he thinks he needs to save the Republic because the Mandalorians are wrecking shit, you know? And, like, he needed to do that in that moment. Without him and Malik, the Republic and the Jedi, they're probably effed, you know? And I just like that idea that he is going to go out and take that and not be the traditional Jedi. That's what I think a great Jedi is. But not someone that will consistently tap into the dark side of the Force. And the video games just don't really make you understand how dangerous that is. Even when you play Knights of the Old Republic, you are literally breaking into people's apartments when you're on Terrace. And the game rewards you for breaking into those apartments and stealing people's items. Like, that's the thing, too. It's like people, like, overlook those details in the Knights of the Old Republic games. They don't understand, like, all the stuff that you're doing isn't necessarily being gauged correctly in the eyes of the Force. So we got 5 minutes here. We got anyone, please, you got any more questions? Let me know before we get off here and get off. Also, thank you so much, guys, for coming in here, following, and being a part of the stream. I really appreciate you guys so much. Leon says, I'd rather be a Jedi because the dark side puts you in a permanent path that ruins your life forever. Plus, the light side is way more OP, Force speed, Force mind control. Yeah, and you know what's, Leon, that's also really intriguing too, fam, because Yoda is like, almost 900 years old at the time of Revenge of the Sith. He is so damn powerful. And even with all of his meditation and everything, even with him ultimately getting weaker because he's getting older, he still brings it to Palpatine. And Palpatine, at this time, is the most powerful Sith in the timeline. Yes, I know, Nihilus and Vitiate, yada, yada, yes, I get it, guys, I understand. But George Lucas depicted Palpatine as the most powerful Sith. That's why the movies are so important. So whatever you think Vitiate and Nihilus can do, Palpatine can probably do that too, if George Lucas wanted him to do that. And that's why those movies are so important. Even at the end of Return of the Jedi, Palpatine is so strong that George Lucas himself says that this guy is at a 9 out of 10 on the power scale. And if he turns Luke Skywalker to the dark side, Palpatine is about to go to an 11. Do you understand what type of power trip that is? He's about to go to an 11. The scale only goes up to 10. He's broken, But Yoda is so strong in the Force in that time, And it's really interesting to see, like, what more could you do with the light side of the Force? And then you get the idea of what Luke can do. Manipulating black holes, really crazy stuff. Is Palpatine the smartest villain? He's definitely up there. But Thrawn, in my opinion, has superiority over him in terms of intelligence and tactability. Palpatine, in my opinion, is absolutely a 9 when it comes to intelligence, but Thrawn is definitely a 10 or an 11. I just can't overlook making 2 Death Stars. I can't, all right, this one blew up, so let's make another one, and I just can't. I can't say Palpatine is the smartest villain in Star Wars because of that. That's really it, But he was a schemer, man, and he schemed the hell out of the Chosen One. And dude, this guy literally created an entire conflict from both sides, so he has to be given for that, and Even with how, even if Vitiate is more powerful, right? Let's say George Lucas reads the Star Wars: The Old Republic Deceived and Revan and plays Star Wars: The Old Republic, you know, and then understands who Vitiate is, which he probably doesn't and doesn't care. You know, even if George Lucas goes through all of that and says, well, you know, yeah, I mean, that Vitiate guy, he's really powerful, you know? I don't think Vitiate is anywhere near as intelligent or tactical as Palpatine. Palpatine is just that dude. Not as good as Thrawn, but he is that dude for certain, you know? All right, so the last thing I want to do, I want to read the other... maybe next time what I'll do is I'll read the Great Jedi stuff for you guys in the companion guide. But this is what we have. So, ready? For the this is from the Jedi Path book, right? And I think this came out in 2016 or 2012. I think this came out in 2012. 2016. Okay. So it says, the so-called Great Jedi have been with us since the beginning. Although they do not break the Jedi orthodoxy concerning the dark side, they bristle when asked to take orders from the Council. Great Jedi make compromises, cut corners, and hide their actions from scrutiny, all under the assumption that their experience makes them the authorities on policy. They are mavericks who are difficult to control, but can be valued members of the Jedi after they have been persuaded to follow the established hierarchy. You know, so there's always different versions of them, and I just think that they backtrack a lot about the whole dark side thing, because I think that the depiction of the dark side earlier in the continuity of Legends isn't depicted correctly. And I think someone, probably Dave or George, didn't really like how people were using the dark side so freely in a lot of these continuity things. You know, I can always prove and talk about Mace Windu didn't use the dark side with Vapad. You know, the Grey Jedi or shouldn't use the dark, or how the dark side is a drug. But there's other things that I can't, like Starkiller, you know, and also Kyle Katarn using Force Lightning. You know, it's just stuff like that where it's just like, well, I don't really have an answer for that. And then there's nothing outside of a few quotes that's saying like, well, Kyle Katarn said this, so this is true. Everybody has their own depiction, you know. I think it's really more so about what the writers say than anything else, and what George says, and that's what I have to fall back on. Because without that, you know, there really is a lot of really interesting things that happen in Star Wars continuity, and that I think breaks the rules. And that's why it's so important to understand that at the end of the day, the expanded universe is the expanded universe. And while it's really awesome and amazing and something I love, it's not the truest depiction of Star Wars. But yeah, thank you, fam. I appreciate you guys. I will see you next week, same time. I will try to bring the cloak again, but I hope you guys liked it. All right, Instagram fam, I will see you. I appreciate you all, and I do not know how to end the stream, but thank you guys. I'll see you guys. Deuces, fam. All right, YouTube, my guys, you guys are still here, so we're still getting it, but I want to say bye to you guys and just say thank you. Thank you guys all the time for being here. It's so fun to see you guys. But that's going to be it for today, all right? I will see you next week. I'll see you next week, 8 p.m. again, and we'll talk more Star Wars. Make sure you watch those shorts. Please, watch those shorts, guys. It's really fun. I love seeing you guys in the comments. And a lot of the questions, too, we usually talk about, so. But yeah, if you want to see that. I love hanging with you guys. It's really fun. We're going to get everything going and ready for Skeleton Crew. That's right, Skeleton Crew. Oh my gosh, Skeleton Crew is coming up. Let's go. I'm excited for Skeleton Crew. I can't wait, man. Always been talking Star Wars with the apprentices and act like, let's go, Leon. Yeah, let's go. But you know, fam, you know what it is, okay? Yes, sir. Coming into the Dark Temple, visited by Mara Jade, Luke Skywalker, and Kyle Katarn, and so many of the Force sensitive like yourself. I'm Lord Dagovere, fam, and I'll see you around. Deuces!